This is what it sounds like inside the Cypress Tunnel. The ocean breeze at Point Reyes National Park has been blowing through these branches since 1930. But at the end of the tunnel, there's another sound that very few people are listening to.
The last of the civilian Morse code ship-to-shore radio stations in the world, except for this poor, pitiful guy that we're hearing coming in. You hear that Morse code over there? He's in South Korea. We've been listening to him for 20 years. He's never gotten a call.
This is the KPH Maritime radio station, the last operating commercial Morse code transmission station in the world.
Of course, there are almost no ships that still have Morse code anymore, but there are some, and those call us because we're the only ones they can call.
Richard Dillman is the president of the Maritime Radio Historical Society, and he runs KPH radio station, which is now part of Point Reyes National Park.
And this was a critical link in the maritime communication system. It was through this station, or stations like it, that ships at sea got their messages ashore and received their messages from shore.
Developed in the mid-1800s, Morse code is one of the earliest forms of electronic communication. Before telephones and voice radios, people communicated with dots and dashes.
And you see A, for example, dot dash.
Dot dash. When early radio was developed, Morse code was the most reliable way to send a message to ships at sea or other countries.
Hong Kong, Singapore, Sydney, all these wonderful places. Each city had a receiver like this tuned to it.
Sending and receiving Morse code to ships was big business because these were important messages. It's not a call home to mom or a girlfriend.
And it says, as to the crack of number 2 hatch cover hydraulic lifter, please advise the latest condition, and please try best to effect a temporary repair.
I feel like that's an important message there, yes. The KPH radio station was one of hundreds of Morse code stations all over the world fighting to communicate with ships. And to get that business, it required a big antenna.
But during the glory days, this was a forest of antennas. You could not see the ocean from here. There were so many of them.
The glory days for KPH did come to an end. Satellite, internet, and new radio technology made Morse code radio stations obsolete. On June 30th, 1997, Richard witnessed KPH's last transmission.
Just these rough-looking guys who had spent their years at sea as radio officers just weeping because here's their life. It's disappearing.
The national park eventually took over KPH's property, and it would be another 2 years before Richard would return to the defunct station. But when he opened the door, he heard something familiar.
And before we got into this room, I started hearing what we're hearing now, Morse code, static, ships calling, and I know the joint is closed for 2 years, so how can this be?
Radio operators left KPH, but they never shut off the equipment. So, in a sense, the station's signal has never ended.
That's what we like to say. There was never a time where this station was not standing watch over the airwaves.
Today, KPH is a maritime radio museum with functioning radio station and a staff of volunteers. It's a place where relics of radio's pasts are preserved. And among those relics is this, the station's last commercial Morse code message.
From all of the staff at Bolinas Radio KPH to our colleagues ashore and at sea, this announcement marks the end of broadcasting from this location at Bolinas and Point Reyes after 85 years of service. To the maritime community, we wish you fair winds and following seas.
From the active airways at Point Reyes National Park in Marin County, I'm John Bartell.